Welcome to the April 21st Jalen Zones production user call. We have Alexander, Anthony, Jan, Mark, Katya, and myself, Michael, so far, and I've been really tightening up my Occam BSD and Propagate and Imagine scripts, and I was surprised. Oh, let's try 14.3 and 14.4, and ta-da, there are no FreeBSD sets. It sounds like, well, those releases have shipped. Do we know if 14.5, which is under release engineering right now, will have them?
As far as I
Sorry.
know, nobody is working on moving that back from 15 to 14.
Got it. So that said, how would is there a super short path to just making a hillbilly one that I can aim at without having to reinvent major wheels and creating a package repo, et cetera, et cetera? Can I do like a really lightweight repo with just meta packages?
Yes, but it would be a repository, and you
What?
would have to add it to your configuration manually before you can use it.
Okay. Yes, could add a repo of just.
And that's pretty easy. That's what I'm doing in my test setup on GCE.
Cool. Is
Or
it
you can
documented somewhere
do.
canonically? And welcome, Jamie. Woohoo.
Welcome,
Yeah,
Jamie.
I would like to document it something canonically, but as you know, package-based docs has been a humongous fight, and I have a stack of reviews, and every time I add something, I have to, and they want me to change something underneath it, I have to redo all the commits, and it's a major pain.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I've told them I'm not adding any more commits until we agree on this. I'm happy to change anything, but that's a pending commit that's in my head that I'm refusing to do until my stack gets approved. Or I should probably just push it because I pinged people and they didn't say anything. But I think it might be due to um, communication struggles and uh, people not wanting to work together for personal reasons
Wetware.
as fights get dragged out. Yeah, wetware. Thank you.
Sure. Well, let's save that for the wetware call. Welcome, Jamie. It's been some time. I know this time of year keeps you mighty busy. One, how are you? Two, do you have any jail-related news for us?
no jail-related news. I've been completely away from jails for the interim.
I trust you are refreshed and eager. And as you've sat perhaps in a hammock or otherwise, have you thought any about your PID1 patch that might give us a simple approach to making system D-based jails a little more digestible?
No, since I've got the old code, it's just a matter of still just digging into it again. But no new thoughts on it. Still kind
Okay.
of have the map of what I plan to do.
Well, I for one would love to see that, but I'm only speaking for myself. If anyone else wants to aim some encouragement Jamie's way, go for it. That said, Alexander, tell us more about first boot package update.
So first boot package update is an rc.d script, and what it does is when a system is first deployed, it has a file. This infrastructure already existed, right? The first boot infrastructure. So it has a file in the root of the tree called first boot, and then if it has that, RC will go to first boot targets. And so my script will run after network, but before any login is allowed. So
Oh,
hopefully we
interesting.
can patch the system before it's exposed. And what it does is it updates all packages from all enabled repositories. So by default, just security updates, which should, um, you know, solve the problem of known vulnerabilities, but you'll still have kind of the vetted, release stability that's like as good as we can guarantee, basically. Um, but you can specify another line in you can specify another line in your rc.conf to specify specific repositories. So if you do first boot package upgrade repos, then it'll limit it to only those. And it builds that with environmental variable, so it's going to be like the absolute minimum amount of resource usage, and then, as far as I understand, and then feeds that to one package upgrade command. So if you put any crap in there, it's not going to run, but it'll fail gracefully, and it'll clean up after itself, and it'll leave in your syslog a notification that it either was successful in everything it did, or it will tell you that it was unsuccessful and it won't try to do it again. So it's currently 1,570 bytes.
Is there anything public on this, like a link or a napkin note or something?
Yeah, I dropped it in the chat. It's
Scrolling up.
D60.
Oh, yes, thank you. Got it. Yep.
81.
Yep, I didn't scroll far. Okay, let's take a peek as a group. New port. And do you picture this in base, or it would be in ports for a while, or what?
We are going to. Sorry.
Go ahead. No.
We are going to ship this in 15.1. I'm on RE, and I've talked it over with Colin, who hasn't had time to look at it too much yet, but we are absolutely shipping this in 15.1 because a lot of the cloud images are using package base, and they don't have this.
Correct.
Yeah. So we will. 15.1 is going to have this. And I'll put it pretty prominently in the release notes because I'm pretty proud of this.
Speaking of 15.1, a little off topic, did you see Chuck's post to architecture about adding his 8-year-old smart command into base?
Yes, and we have a consensus that we want that.
Is that something that could make it in 15.1, or has that ship airport failed?
So he's got about. If he could get that done this week, we can do that. And if he doesn't, then we can't.
Got it. Thank you.
That's kind of our time frame.
I suspect he's maybe been left kind of silent on that.
Yeah, everyone said he's not everyone, but like he has enough of a consensus, including me, and a lot of silent approval. I didn't, once a few major players say that they approve of it, there's no need for me to comment a +1. But I'll absolutely help with the review. I would like to see that in 15.1. Back in when we were releasing 14.0, one of the Graybeards, Greg Leahy, he was complaining on the mailing list that it's ridiculous that we don't have something like that in base. So definitely, if he can put the review up like this week and we can get it approved this week, which if he's happy to iterate on it quickly, like I have time. If he wants to do that today, we can do that all day. MFC after 3 days, stick it in 15.1. I would love to see that. I'm sure Colin would love to see that. Everyone would love to see that.
Thank you.
I should probably send him a mail.
Yes, please do, because I've just messaged him, but things are not always a clever one-to-one relationship between like thoughts in people's heads and communication and the proper channels, etc. So that said, Jan, you have some concerns that such an update tool would run after networking and file systems, which might mean what? You already have a hostile environment? Oh no, you're already
No, it's just that those are the dependencies I think you have to have as a required statement. Because you need all the file systems to potentially to patch your system, and you need networking to get the patches. So some services may be running stuff like a DHCP client.
Well, he did say networking, but Alexander, is our file systems on the list there? It's kind of assume, but never assume.
File systems comes before networking, so that I think.
Cool.
But yeah, I think networking is one of the latest targets. So basically, what it's going to do, God willing, is you spin it up, and instead of taking 20 seconds for it to release the system to you, like you spin it up on GCE console and request a new virtual machine, and then instead of it being ready to SSH in like 20 seconds, it's ready in like 50 seconds, but it comes to you fully patched, and there will be basically no known vulnerabilities as far as we can guarantee.
Okay. Anything else on that specifically? And good
I
work,
would
Godspeed.
Thank you. I would definitely appreciate if anybody has any feedback on the comments. So RC scripts don't have manuals, so I can't put a manual in for this because that would change the precedent, and I don't want to do that without careful review of the overall system. So the comment is in the the documentation is in comments at the top of the script, and that's where it needs to live. That's where all the other ones live, and if anything could be clarified, that'd be great. Thanks.
Cool.
Did you put the new rc.conf variables in the rc.conf main page?
Nice. I did not because
that's where I would go to look for user-facing rc.conf configuration, which is not just enable a service.
Yeah, that makes sense. I didn't because the precedent is that we put the first boot updater in ports, but probably it should live in base so that we can do that, because I don't see why you wouldn't want it to.
If it goes into base, it should be mentioned in the section 5 main page on rc.conf.
Agree. Yeah, thank you.
Otherwise, it's a port and it can't be part of an existing main page, so it deserves its own. And in that case, I don't see any problem. As long as it's not in base, give it a main page. Why not? Give it a readme.md. Anything.
That's a good point.
But even more important, put it in the post-install message of a port.
That's also
for documentation.
That's also a good thing. Thank you.
Although it might go from port to base really quick, right?
Yeah, but even still, like I think that to me, as a maintainer, I think that atomicity is important. Like, it really irritates me when people are like, "Oh yeah, I'm going to add the manual in a follow-up commit. I have it done," and it's like, no, dude, don't do that. Like, make it one atomic commit. That way, it's bisectable cleanly. So I'm happy to do a little bit of extra work. It's not much extra work to add, 2 sentences.
Yeah, exactly. One sentence post-install message telling you where to find, just a path to the README file or the main page to read, because most users won't start by reading the source code to an rc.t script.
Yeah, that's
Developers
perfect. Maybe I'll say
operators won't.
Yeah, I was thinking like maybe just it's a super quick fix, even that to say that this is documented in the comments at user local edit rc.d first boot package upgrade.
You can also wait a second. Isn't there a way for the port rc.d script to add their own description strings? I think you can do that. It doesn't have to go into base. So then you do a service name describe on it.
Ooh, that's cool. I'm new to rc.d scripting.
Description what they do.
That's perfect. I will definitely add that. That's perfect. Thank you so much. Oh, that should be also that should be an intro.8 if it's not already.
Oh,
because I did not know that.
rc.d scripts are lazy about doing that.
I see.
So
Thank you.
describe, and then there's RC-vars, I think. So it's called RC-var.
So are you two on the same page for that, and you have the appropriate post-it notes to do the thing in the thing?
I believe so.
Awesome. Great. Thank you, Jan, for helping him out with that. And speaking of Jan, I brought up package base earlier. We've touched on it in various ways, and I was surprised that for 14 you're on your own, which is no surprise. It's been a moving target. But here is Jan's script. It's in the doc. It's in the chat on how to blast out a package-based jail using a little bit of love and magic. Yes.
What's useful about this is that it works around the fact that 14 does not define package sets.
Yes.
So rather than expecting a package set, it uses package rquery to select what to install. So it expands a query into a set of packages, fetches and installs them, and so on.
Yep.
I haven't tested with package 2.7, so it may be broken right now, and it is definitely an end-of-life release in that example because it was the supported legacy release when I wrote that file.
Yeah, and our query is
about
awesome, yet finicky, yet mother could love it. And so, yeah, that is a great way. And oh my gosh, the package sets make it much easier, the base package. Anyway, thank you very much for exposing that. Wild. I can give a demo later if you like. I'm using my tools to blast out a jail, and I thought, oh, it'll be a few more minutes of work to make it P9FS booted, which raises a question. I should know this. Do we know if one can do root on P9FS using the Beehive firmware UEFI-GOP-EDK2?
I don't know. Never tried it.
I gave it a go. It was like no boot device. Have a nice day, but there might be something I can inject or select, and I'll tinker with that. So we have a docs person here, and we have a VLAN user. Jan, what were you suggesting on VLAN bridge?
So FreeBSD 15.0 released with VLAN filtering support in the bridge driver.
Yes.
And so far, I think Ivy's notes in her FreeBSD people website is about the only proper description of how to use it. So this far.
Give a link to that. Because I know Ivy
I
goes
just
by a
dropped
few.
it into the chat.
Thank you. Brilliant. Oh, you read my mind.
And in my opinion, this should not be hidden in a split between the IF config main page and the bridge driver main page, but deserves the tutorial style documentation either in the handbook or as its own little article, which the handbook would just link to.
I would love to see this. I don't understand why this itself is perfect. Like we could literally just we could literally just make this an article. You know, it just needs markup.
A few capital letters, eh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Rip out the future work or rephrase that and collect it into complete configurations.
Please, someone other than me can ask her to submit it as an article.
Why someone different from you?
We wetware issues. Our relations have degraded.
Oh, bummer. Got it. Who would love the honors? Katya. I don't know. Going from the list here. Hey. Anyway, I'm guessing that would be better sooner or later if it could like ship with 15.1. Hypothetically, not that articles are directly tied, but hey, we want some coverage here.
I never thought of this. We don't put articles in the release notes, but I see no reason that we couldn't put it on the news, right? On freebsd.org. This latest news or press or something.
Press would be by convention a link to something external, but if you write a blog article about it, it can go into press.
My only blog is internal.
Other
than that, news is basically chain. Normally, it's either new committers or releases.
I think that
Reports.
I think that a status report is a type of new article, even though we classify it slightly differently. And I think that a new article absolutely could go on news. And I think that I have the mechanical and social authority to do so. So I would put that on the news if we had a new article. I can't write articles on anything I don't know about, but if somebody writes up an article, tag me for review, I'll review it and merge it if I can. Like, if it's good enough.
Yeah, what's really nice about the way the new bridge VLAN support is implemented is that the idea is that you end up with only VLAN tagged frames on the bridge. And if you want to send or receive untagged frames, you set a default or physical ID, whatever you call it. We've switched and apparently has their own terminology, if it's called a PVID or a default VLAN or whatever. But once you tag those ports, every untagged frame you receive from them gets tagged with that VLAN ID and then forwarded by the switch. And on the opposite direction, if you forward it out of that port, if it has the default VLAN ID, the VLAN header is stripped so that it goes out untagged. What's nice about that is that you now have a bridge 0.1 interface, and that's where your IP addresses live. So you actually have a split between the bridge and the bridge where you add the members and the interface where you put your IP addresses. So maybe we will slowly convert people to doing the right thing. But that is an operational change, especially for those who in FreeBSD 14 and earlier abused the bridge and put the IP addresses on a member interface. And that's something this write-up by Ivy does not explicitly call out. It's there, but it's not especially as caution. This is an operational change, and you should have been doing it like that since forever. But yeah, don't call your users idiots if you want them to listen to you.
It does touch on that. Where does it do that? Everything is bridge. That's not a great one. So that was that scoping or something. And is IVLW on BSD Cafe? Well, I think they are. I am going to post something on that just to say, hey, there it is. Okay. This came up, I think, at the very end of the last call. We didn't go too deep because, hey, we ran out of time. Otherwise, does anyone care about the KExec and want to discuss it right now? I will push it down. Wait a minute. Because we're operating at the file level, I thought this article on intrusion detection with M tree was just interesting. Just saying. Just saying. And there was also one on visualizing CPU pipelining, more of a beehive thing, but hey, there it is. It stood out for your reading pleasure. That said, I did ask about that. I'll bring it up more on the beehive call, or hopefully have some time to tinker with that, but I do have my jails booting with oh, and here's an answer from Ivy. I think it is an article. Things can move quickly. Let me post this in chat. It'll let me copy. And they called out the exact same thing, which is, hey, I think it is already an article, but if you'd like to capitalize some letters, please feel free. License is public domain. So, doc team within reach, who is interested in doing whatever the right thing is?
So I'm looking at the I'm looking at docs.freebsd.org/en/articles, and I do not see it here.
I think they're saying, oh, it's kind of an informal article. And they did put quite a bit of effort in there. Anyway,
she did, but there's a difference. You know, nobody's going to look for it where
correct.
there because you can't. It should go on freebsd.org/articles.
So I read that as, well, someone is willing to knock themselves out, to use the slang. So you've heard it here on the call. I hope someone does something with that. It probably won't be me. So hopefully some good will come out of that. Think about it over the next little bit. I don't know if anyone wants a demo of a jail that jumps into P9FS, but hey, Anthony, do you have some news on your nifty project you've been talking about here?
I do, and it's actually jail related.
Sweet, perfect. Bring it on. And you found a new topic. What you got? So, boom, forums. And is this it, or is that something else? You just
it would help if I took myself off mute. I'm new at this. Forgive me.
No worries at all.
So to make a long story short, we talked about kind of one idea that I have that really frustrates me is I want to be able to use Linux tooling and FreeBSD jails as a homogeneous unit, not as like I'm trying to build a jail on Linux or I'm trying to build a container on FreeBSD, but actually combine some projects. And my thought here was this fellow, who I have no idea who it is, has written some stuff about the CRI O containers and using kubeadmin into existing clusters. And my thought here, just at a really high level, is if Occam can supply that CRI node combined with the project that I'm doing, in theory, to make a long story short, we should be able to use my project to do all the hypervisor work and to do all the execution work and all the clones. OpenBSD to spin up all the containers properly on FreeBSD, and this Rabson Fellows interface would basically be able, well, at a really high level, should be able to execute all of the Kubernetes commands. So in theory, we should be able to execute, or we should be able to use Kubernetes on Linux to deploy actual jails on FreeBSD and then do all of the plumbing. There are a number of questions, thoughts, comments, and things that could possibly blow up, like who handles routing and all of that sort of stuff. But my goal was just to try and see if that's actually possible to run the right technology on the right platform and integrate it all without trying to like make a pod man for that. One of my big questions was, because I don't know, in 2026, what is the go-to jail platform on FreeBSD?
One thing is that jail.conf has come a very long way such that the in-base tools are better than ever. There's one angle on it.
I mean, that would be the simplest.
And so one thing I'll throw in there is based on what you said, do you picture almost portable containers between Linux and FreeBSD, or is that a misunderstanding?
I would say just Kubernetes at this point just becomes an orchestrator of containers, and under the hood, it would have no idea if it's launching a Linux container or a FreeBSD jail. That would be my
jail or okay. I know very little about Kubernetes. I'm more in the weeds and plumbing. Other thoughts on that? Comments? Jan? Alexander, maybe your organization's using a Kate or two.
I don't get to touch any of that stuff or look at it or anything.
I mean, I guess another question straight up would be like, is this a good idea? Has this already been done and buried and said no, or am I barking up the right tree here?
I would think getting to a point where Kubernetes doesn't care which platform, whether it be Linux or FreeBSD, but we probably need something that would take a jail and make an OCI image.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's what I was trying to get at, but
does New Age in it do that? Have you guys seen New Age in it?
Yeah, that's what Colin Percival's tool.
BAPT.
Yeah.
Or BAPT. I'll forget the spelling of that. It was clever.
Yeah, because at that point, Kubernetes just becomes a common orchestrator interface, whatever you want to describe it as. It just has to take in a common format.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going for. Because I'm thinking like, why reinvent the wheel when you already have good management on Linux? But at the same time, we don't want to sacrifice security and operational stuff to run workloads on Linux, or at least have the option to say, hey, I want to run all these workloads in Linux because that's fine, but I have a secure workload that I need to run on with actual isolation.
So for those who haven't heard of it, I've dropped first the manual page, second manual page in, and then an article from Baptiste about that. I suppose I can put it in chat too.
Thanks. No, never heard of it.
Okay, well then there's that and BAP's update on the topic. Go ahead, Jan, describe it while I bring that up.
It's basically a re-implementation of the common parts of Cloud Init in Lua as part of a FreeBSD-based system, so that you can use it for first boot or even for every boot reconfiguration. You do stuff like update packages, install packages, deploy initial configurations, and so on. And the two common ways to get the configuration into the system is either via an HTTP service or to mount it as a read-only file system.
That actually sounds like it might be interesting, because I just did Cloud Init for the jails test suite the ZFS test suite that I did. So if I could do that directly with FreeBSD, that might actually work.
Doesn't support everything, but I think it supports more than enough to get FreeBSD up and running.
Welcome, Dan.
For what it's worth,
Yes.
I used many different jail managers over the years, and eventually I started struggling with them to get them to do what I wanted because they wanted to do it their way. And I just stopped using jail managers altogether and just went to /.c/jail.conf.d. And that's what I use on my main hosts at the moment. The other hosts just use /jail.conf. But I use a script for creating and upgrading jails, but not for jail configuration. I have some Ansible scripts for some things in etcjail.conf.d, but the management of the jails themselves is not done by a piece of software that you would see as a jail manager.
Yep, the N-based tools have become very good. Embrace them. So yeah.
I think part of the initial appeal of all the jail manager tools was, oh, I don't have to do all these steps manually. And it was several different steps in terms of downloading the source code and extracting the binaries, that sort of thing. But now I do all that in a separate script. But any jail configuration is entirely outside that script. Anthony, does this make sense? What I'm trying to explain?
Yeah, for sure. My jail's experience is somewhat limited. I mean, I built a whole bunch about 10 years ago and used IO-Cage, I think, and it's just been running my media, my streaming radio station. So very limited, but no, I appreciate it. And actually, ETSA, anything in ETSA or root file system is easier to do.
And continue.
Oh no, I'm done. Thanks.
I used IO-Cage. I used EasyJail. I never tried Bastille, and that's as far as I went. And I think I've been on vanilla jails now for I have to look that up, but it's been a few years.
Well, there's a ringing endorsement right there.
One thing I did want to ask is kind of a strange question, but has anyone been able to put enough of FreeBSD into its own jail to like basically run the entire OS in a jail or on a data set?
I run Boudreaux in a jail.
I always make fat jails.
Yeah. What Alexander said. I never start with a minimum jail. I start with a jail that looks like FreeBSD full out.
Interesting. So you use like a nested jail approach?
No, I don't know how to answer that. For Poudre, yes, there are jails in the jail. Yes. But for normal jails, it's just the entire OS that's in there except for the kernel.
So I put it in jail.8, and I'm probably the least experienced person here at using jails because I have no production or business uses for them whatsoever and never have. I just use them for locally comparing how our man pages have changed without switching my Git branch and seeing like what we actually did in releases. But if you go to the jail manual, it has shipped in 15, and you go to examples. I wrote in there, and I think it didn't have any review whatsoever. But
here we go.
Yeah, so I put these setting up a jail directory from source, but the setting up a jail
Sorry,
directory
what?
from system packages.
Pudding? You want some pudding?
I would love some pudding, but
Should all be in the same
I'm going to
place.
meet you. So system packages, look at that. Ah, yes, and this is indeed a thing, but I believe automation is somehow disabled. There's like a way to script it, but that does not do it. And this is cool in that it pops up like a dialogue box to choose package base, etc. So
That's how I do it. That's the only way actually I know how to do it. I know that there's much more advanced stuff than that, but I've never needed to get into it, so I don't understand it yet.
no worries. That's cool. And you added that? Thank you for adding that.
Yeah, I did all these before. It was just setting it up from source, and it didn't say from source. I added split that into the 3, where it's like, here's how you build it from source, here's how you do it with a distribution set, here's how you do it with package base.
Yes, please, because there are decades of documentation that describe install world, etc., even without distribution sets. So yes, thank you very much for adding that in. And that indented, yes, indented like that. Great. So take a peek at that for those who haven't seen it.
Thanks, I will, yeah. I appreciate the help. I don't know, what do you guys think? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, is this like a 2 and I'm like intrigued with something that's not really useful, or is this like an 11 conceptually?
It is still in regards to Kubernetes?
Yeah, I think so. So Kubernetes to orchestrate jails and containers on Linux, if I understand you correctly.
Well, it wouldn't know the difference, but you would basically get an option to use Kubernetes as you would normally use on Linux, like every day of the week. And then there would be a checkbox that says, no, I want to use a FreeBSD jail. And the idea there is if you want to use a FreeBSD jail, it would simply clone out and deploy a minimalistic FreeBSD jail and then do all the plumbing so that Kubernetes would think it's just a normal namespace.
But what FreeBSD kernel is that executing on? A VM under Kubernetes or something else, or a bare metal?
Well, it would be bare metal platform, and it would be my utility that would load those VMs.
So a jail under a VM on Linux, if I understand you correctly?
Yes. Unless okay. I could build it the other way around. I could build a FreeBSD host and host Linux on it, if that would be a better approach.
My personal concern is that all these options are available to you. That's been if you watch any of my talks for the last few decades, that's my theme. So yes, and yes, and yes, and hopefully no one prevents you from doing something like that. So others are welcome to chime in. For example, Katya, you're in a production environment, and I do not know if there is Linux and Kubernetes in that ecosystem, but you do, I trust, spin up a jail or two.
Yes.
Does any of this overlap with what you're doing in production?
In production, no, we don't have a lot of Linux servers, at least not like in any instance I'm responsible for. I really only work with FreeBSD jails and VMs, so yeah, but that's always good to know about.
Do you have any exposure to Kubernetes and either are attracted or fear it or otherwise?
So yeah, that's always good to learn about, and I'm pretty sure yes, we do have some. But in prod, I'm not sure. I'm just checking, but
sure, no, yeah, any experiences and facts are appreciated. Some opinions. So yeah, Anthony, trust your instincts. And if it's effortless for you to cleverly say, well, if you need FreeBSD under Linux, here's a short path to doing it. If you need the opposite, here's a short path to doing it, and let the thousand flowers bloom from that effort.
Me,
Okay.
I don't use Kubernetes at all. I know lots of people that do. I know that I am pretty sure that lots of people would like to be able to run Kubernetes on FreeBSD.
Yeah.
As far as encouraging you, do it because you think it's a good idea, and don't listen to anyone who thinks it's a bad idea. Just do it and see what happens.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, my underlying problem here is that I don't know enough about, or I haven't been current enough about how FreeBSD actually does stuff, and especially regarding like system services, networking. You know, I understand PF and all of that stuff, but trying to my whole thing is I don't want to use the wrong operating system and the wrong tools to try and make something work. I want to have that clear line of separation.
So I don't use Kubernetes personally on my stuff, but I've seen others use it and help them debug stuff on it. So my understanding is that you have your fancy control plane, your controllers, and those could technically run on a different operating system to the one you're deploying to. So there's value in having those tools be able to run on FreeBSD, available from ports, maybe with a meta port for the whole ecosystem, or with a free collection of optional parts which fit together, because Kubernetes has so many choices how you can assemble it. Some of them very incompatible with each other. And then the other point is running workloads on FreeBSD. The most compatible runtime I think we have is Podman, which exists. Yeah. So there are two things you can tackle if you have solved both the runtime and the control plane. Then you can, in theory, use Kubernetes on a pure FreeBSD deployment.
Dude, that's something I didn't even know. I didn't even know you could run Kubernetes on FreeBSD.
So check out these articles I found. Someone went to a bunch of effort to document their adventures and Kubernetes, FreeBSD control plane, and there are two articles could be useful.
Yeah,
Kubernetes
I don't think.
is how. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, when it comes to Kubernetes, I think the fact that it doesn't really understand storage, just volume is already a challenge itself. So yeah, there is a lot of tech giants that are moving away from Kubernetes, and I think yeah, it's too heavy.
Heavier weight than you need. Go ahead,
it's
Anton.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's interesting that you mentioned that actually, because I got away with the whole Kubernetes storage plane too and built a ZFS backend. So it uses data sets instead of the core Linux containerization. And those control planes that you were talking about, Jan, I got rid of all of that too. So the entire Kubernetes stack is in kernel.
What do you mean by that?
I mean that there's no CNI gateways, there's no extra pods or anything. Cilium and all of the networking is done in kernel. All of the eBPF maps and such is contained wholly in the kernel. And all of the network decisions are all in kernel. So you don't have like that CNI gateway and the extra storage plane gateways and all of that other stuff. I built all of that
someone
directly
still has
into
to load the eBPF script and update it if you start and stop containers.
I don't. Yes. So yes, you have to update it, but it's not updating in an actual container that's like a sidecar container. It's updating in the in-kernel eBPF map. I'm not sure if FreeBSD has in-kernel maps, or if that's
It does not have an eBPF. FreeBSD does have BPF, as in the traditional Berkeley Packet Filter API or stuff like DHCP clients. It does not have eBPF as an interface to massive how the kernel internally works. We do have, in theory, destructive dtrace with which you can do crazy shit if you have to, but it would not be something I would be happy to run in production like that. But for a lot of things, you don't have to actually do it with an eBPF-like interface because we have network stack virtualization, we have zone jail awareness in ZFS so that you can delegate a data set to be self-managed by the jail.
Yeah, FreeBSD has taken a lot of the stuff that Linux has left in userland or to userland daemons and put it in kernel. So it's better in that respect, but the Linux kind of portion is still a little what I would consider messy, in that it hasn't fully adopted doing everything in kernel, like networking and lookups and all of that stuff.
What kind of lookups do you mean?
Well, Linux has to have a basic map for everything. So if you have like a network packet that's going along the pipe, so as to speak, that network packet has to actually come up to a userland daemon to apply policy and ownership and all of that stuff to that packet. Then it has to tell that packet, oh, okay, go back under the wire or go to this other place, right? So it makes Linux very yucky from that respect, because you're taking everything that should never leave the wire and you're pulling it into userland to run operations and policy on it. What Cilium has done is Cilium works in that same sort of fashion, but the default install of Cilium is to say, hey, I want to use all of these sidecar containers to do all of that stuff. What I've done is I've told Cilium, no, I don't want to use any sidecar stuff. I want to use a bare metal load balancer. I want to use the in-kernel BPF maps and policy that I put specifically in Cilium. And now none of that network policy is required to go up to a userland container, because all of the maps and stuff that it's being analyzed against, or policy is being matched against on that packet, happens in kernel. So the effect is that Cilium can now see every single packet across every single node that you have deployed, which in turn can then see every single container or pod that is deployed in that. So the benefit to the way that I've done it is that I can trace a packet from that starts at one node, goes to 10 different nodes in 10 different pods in 10 different configurations around the world, and I can run a single trace and watch the packet go across the entire network. So that's what I'm... Sorry, go ahead.
What tool would you use to do that?
I built it. And I built it as kind of a ZFS test environment, but it kind of turned into a platform that's based on Kubernetes that you can say, I want to take my production Kubernetes platform, completely sandbox it, and then gain all of the visibility of looking at all of the kernel messaging directly on each of the nodes. That's what I've been working on, that I was going to bring up in tomorrow's meeting for the test. But it just has the added benefit of, hey, what if I added this to containerization? And it was like, oh my God, this is awesome. So that's where I was coming from with it.
Well, I hope that the production user call effort can provide you reliable tools to continue such exploration and find clever new ways to do things.
we've definitely given me lots to chew on, so I'll have to go research it all and do all of that. But
yeah, we tend to ruin weekends here, so there's that, and these articles might open up some new doors.
One quick question before I get too involved in this, but currently with FreeBSD jails, I'm under the impression that management and deployment of jails is painful. So if I say I want to deploy 500 jails across 200 nodes, my understanding is that would be a painful task. Is that correct?
Doesn't have to be. Could be as simple as running Ansible pull on all the systems, then just having them pull their host-specific configuration and basically templating out a jail.conf for every jail and starting the jails. It could probably be done in 10 minutes.
With base tools, yeah, it would be interesting.
So there's been a lot of work done.
Look at my package-based jail.conf. That's a jail.conf, so a jail configuration file that bootstraps the jail on demand, so that you can start with nothing but a parent ZFS dataset for the jail to be created in. The jail will create itself its own dataset in ZFS, and then use package base to populate that dataset with a FreeBSD userland and install it. I have another one which even keeps it updated and so on. So every time the jail starts, it applies the latest security patches.
That's fantastic. So it's not actually a big a problem as I thought it was, by the sound of it.
Well, the mechanisms exist. There's no opinionated tooling to make it easy. But the infrastructure is there. You just have to build it yourself. And in FreeBSD 15, it is even a bit simpler because we have now meta packages for package-based package collections, so that you can just basically install the FreeBSD set jail package, and it has a dependency on enough of a userland to become useful.
And go ahead and tell them about .include, which I believe we have Jamie and the calls to thank.
Mm-hmm. So with .include, you can have a generic jail.conf, something like the one I will drop into the chat soon-ish.
Same one or different one? Different from this?
Yeah, this is for a specific single jail called package base.
Okay.
The example jail.
Yep.
This one is the generic global one, which would find this one. So this is the meta jail.conf, so that you always have a global view of all your jails in the configuration, and it just includes them on demand.
Interesting.
And then you can put stuff in your jail.conf. You just put them in the right place. If you want to have a jail defined in a single config file, you put it somewhere like etc jail.d something.conf. If your jail needs some companion files, you create a directory named etc jail.d my jailname.d and create a jail.conf in that. So I can show you how that can look. Can I take the screen share for a second?
Yes, let me just show that how actually brief to the point this is. I was expecting a lengthy article, but boom, there it is. So Anthony, I trust your shell script can belt that out with great enthusiasm. Go ahead and share, Jan. I've stopped the share.
Quick question before I forget. My method to doing this is basically to build in a data set and then export it, or a pool and then export it, and then clone that. Would that still be a good approach to do what you're talking about, or should I make it more organic?
ZFS is your friend.
Which terminal did I just share?
You've got Imperium is driven by hate. Among countless.
That's yeah, okay, but then why did it share the whole desktop and not just the individual terminal window?
I cannot answer that. You have a copy root CA certificate in the middle of a
terminal
window with cute little golden diamonds.
Well, here, jail-rp. I will stop my jail. ZFS destroy it. It's gone. And now I can provision a jail from that style of jail.conf called pgsql. And it will create through just what's in the hooks of the jail.conf, create a data set for it, create the directory for the device file system mount point, clone the base packages so that I have my local repository and don't have to put load on the FreeBSD content delivery network for every jail provisioning on the host. I create directories, I populate them so that the package manager is happy because it wants to drop privileges when fetching the packages. I configure the jail to use a virtual function so that I don't have CPU overhead for the bridging. Now my jail gets to use a hardware virtual function on the network card. I provision it, it starts up, and installs itself. It creates a local certificate authority and so on, so that it's a self-signed certificate for my own Postgres SQL server. It rewrites the default Postgres SQL configuration so that it uses include here inside Postgres. And then once it made the configuration modular, it enables what Postgres still calls SSL, it's TLS. And now I can do a JExec PGSQL. Sorry, I have to put the here are all the processes. I have a DHCP client, I have a route solidification daemon, I have syslog, and I have Postgres. Okay, does not exist. I have to specify the role. And it's already configured to map the root user to the Postgres role when it comes to authentication so that I don't need a password.
So what tool orchestrated this? It's more than just the jail.conf or the include example. So
this is what you can build with it by having a Postgres jail configuration. So,
and let's take a peek at that jail.conf if you're willing to. Yeah,
the jail.conf is just an interaction so that it sets the jail name, and then I have a file to be included into the jail configuration.
Thank you, Jamie.
So inside that jail configuration, we have a bunch of configuration at the start, the ABI and the OS version, which technically isn't even needed anymore. I could have gotten that through an include. The jail, because it runs Postgres, requires System 5 IPC. So I create a new namespace for System 5 messages, semaphores, and shared memory to make Postgres happy. I set the host name. I specify a list of packages to install. Because the jail is supposed to update itself, which means it has to potentially write a new libc and runtime linker and so on when those get patched. So it has to be allowed to modify files with BSD extended flags. This just means that it sees a realistic representation of the mount points. It gets a slightly extended device file system rule set so that it can run a DHCP client and a route solidification service. I mount a device file system and a file descriptor file system. This is supposed to be a VNet jail, not because it has to be, but because I wanted to test the automation for it. So then I specify the DHCP interface and set that to vnet.interface. The problem here is that you can't expand a multi-valued variable in a string. So I specify it once as a single value and then as a potentially multi-valued variable. That's an annoying limitation of the syntax, but it is what it is. Then I export a bunch of variables and parameters in this string so that this string only has to be written once. And then the individual hooks, which get executed with sh-c by the jail command, expand that string to this shell snippet, and then slurp the hook script into the shell that the jail command has already started. This is a workaround because otherwise the script would be a jail.conf string. So every double quote and dollar sign would have to be quoted. And that makes it fucking annoying. You don't get sorry, the sanitized version of which include
the exact same thing we're looking at. Is that for those who are following along, is this available for some copy pasta, as Antonik puts it?
Not yet, because I'm not happy with it and I haven't bothered to make
Wow,
the
I need you
draft
happy.
available.
Okay.
Anyway,
Continue.
So now we have this nice thing here, the something like the prepare.sh, and now this is a proper shell script and doesn't have to be quoted one more time to become the safe string value.
Yeah, you
But
got rid of all the
because
herdoc.
No, here
You got rid of all the herdoc. Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Which here doc?
Did you ever use a HuDoc, or this precludes that entirely?
Gets rid of it. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
So yeah,
you say you're not happy with it. I think if you put it out there, a lot of people would be.
possibly.
Your standards on the hygiene of this are quite high, and that's awesome. And
No, that's not the hygiene, it's the long-term maintainability of it.
Got it. Okay.
I don't want to maintain this version of the code for long term, so I don't want anyone else depending on this version. Because that sets an expectation. But now let's just skip to the end. So this main function here, it configures the jail network, it starts the CRC script. Yeah. And then installs, once the jail is ready for it, the packages, it initializes the Postgres database, generates the root CA, generates a server certificate, so that it's a self-signed certificate for the server. It configures Postgres and it enables the service so that Postgres gets started on every start and starts it on this start as well.
Oh, I think I should be deploying containers this way, or jails this way. I mean, what you've done in 1,000 lines of bash is probably, 100 YAML files and just IAC.
Yes, exactly. And I have some little helper functions here. Here hooks.d and a makefile to wrap them. So this makefile is part of an attempt to write an overly complicated makefile so that I can do a make here and it works, but I can also do a make here and it all works in one make. But I've broken that right now because, yeah, but still. Without using multiple levels of sub makefiles. So I have a global dependency analysis so that make this J does the right thing and so on. Anyway, inside these hooks, I have this setup.sh. It's a little helper to generate pretty output. So here's the minimal stuff, which defines a bunch of emojis to use as annotations. And then setup sh here is functions which you can use to generate fancy block-wise output from pure shell. And this here is a pretty crazy one because it uses bin-sh to redirect both standard in and out to capture it in variables and so on, and still report the proper exit code and so on. Yeah, with that I can have kind of a notepad-like view where every little step is a cell, visual cell in the output with ASCII art boundaries between tasks.
Yeah, that looks really cool. Because yeah, that's a hard process in Linux. It takes a long time, and there's no standard way to do it because you can do 50 things and everything in Linux.
Right. And I'll throw out there one little point that I think you're adjacent to, which is I suspect that Kubernetes does lots of things, and debugging it might be an adventure. That's pure speculation, but having this be sort of verbose yet logical makes debugging just so much easier. And you learn those in-base tools once and move on rather than learn the next cool, exciting manager and learn its opinions and then adjust, blah, blah, blah. You can see where I'm going with that. So anyway.
I've also written a little tool called tarconf, which is kind of a rewrite of Colin's EC2 tool, admin tools, which can apply an initial configuration to something like a jail from a tarball. So, and you can do it recursively. So you can have tarballs of tarballs, and it will recursively untar them and go through them. And you have what basically a shebang line means run it as a script. If it's a shebang line like thing with the IO redirection, it can either append to a file or overwrite a file. It's written with libarchive in C, and it can be targeted either to the host, to a change root, or to a jail. And because it's written in C, it's not a problem that the jail is empty, so you can use it for bootstrapping. And then you can have like a directory, you tar that directory up, or you give it a directory and then it will tar it for you. Yeah. And it just peeled the layers of this tarball onion so that you can build them up. So you have one tarball which does one aspect. It's a single file now, despite it containing multiple files. And you can just build them into a tree to handle parts of your system. It's a lot faster than running Python with Ansible and loading 3 megabytes of Python source code into every new worker process. So it doesn't have a 1 second startup time, but it doesn't have a lot of help to make stuff idempotent either. So you have to write that yourself in shell if you want it. I've been thinking to make it a bit more clever so that if you have certain naming conventions like a precondition script and then a modification script and maybe an undo script if something failed or something, so that, yeah. But you could even implement that in 100 lines of shell and make this logic part of the shell script you could just reuse.
So does that point you in the right direction?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, okay. That said,
wait a sec.
Yes,
Anthony, Anthony, you mentioned something earlier about cloning file systems in order to create a jail.
Yes.
Okay. When I was talking about a script that I use to create and make jails, that's called make jail. And recently, Mark Felder submitted a patch to make jail to start using cloned file systems rather than creating a fresh file system and copying everything into it each time. So yeah, that's a pretty common approach. I think Bastille BSD uses that as well. Is that the right term? Is it Bastille BSD or Bastille? Anyway, no, it's not unusual to create jails that way.
Do you have a link handy for that? I'll do a quick search here.
For
MKJail from
github.com/makejail.
Okay, got
and
it.
then look in the pull requests for what Mark did. I used that. I created a development copy of MakeJail and used it to create a jail on the weekend that was done by clones.
Quick,
I haven't
Anthony,
tried updating or upgrading, but Mark says he has done that.
Anthony, you
Whoa, what happened?
will probably run into this problem if you haven't already, that yes, ZFS clones are great for quickly instantiating lots of jails, but you can't rebase them. So the moment you have to do a FreeBSD upgrade or a Linux, I don't know, a Debian dist upgrade or something, basically you still have the dependency on the old snapshot, which is the origin of your clone, but you also have a full copy of every modified block. So suddenly you have all the downsides of thin provisioning and fact provisioning, unless you are very, very careful to never accumulate any meaningful changes in your clones, which have to be preserved. You can assemble FreeBSD jails in such a way out of clones and persistent file systems that you end up with a jail which is thin provisioned with clones and mounts either a ZFS file system or tempfs into the right places so that it works. But that requires very careful arrangement so that all your jails remain stateless.
Yep.
And Jan, are you referring to your EuroBSD?
Yes, I gave a talk on it. I looked
here's a link
for it, but it looks like the EuroBSDCon YouTube channel still hasn't released the recordings.
Oh, interesting.
Jan, with my blessing, feel free to comment on that pull request.
Which pull request? Sorry,
this one.
GitHub.com/makejail. Yeah, that one.
It's in the chat, 61. At the highway.
One quick stupid question before I forget to ask. One of the bane of existences for Linux in doing clones and all of that sort of stuff is creating unique host IDs. You have to use Cloud Init to go reset a bunch of stuff. So you basically get you get clones that are cloned from a golden image, but then individualized. Is that a problem with FreeBSD or is that automatic?
Not unless you want it to be. Normally, you don't have a UUID assigned to your jail, not really, because as far as I remember, the UUID service doesn't run, but my jail automation handles that because we have the UUID gen command in base, which uses a system call to have the kernel generate a type 1 UUID from the primary MAC address of the host and a timestamp so that you get a unique 128-bit UUID. And you can ask for batches of up to 1,000 per system call and use those to assign UUIDs to your jails. And if you expose them to the right jail parameter, the jail gets it. It's documented in the jail main page, which parameter to use, and then you can set it a host ID and UUID, which can easily be picked up by some kind of orchestration tool to uniquely identify the jail for however long you want, especially across restarts, but even across migrations between different hosts if you want to migrate the datasets or mount them over NFS and run like that.
Awesome.
that exists. Just make sure that you don't store the etc host ID file already in your golden image. But I think that you would have to run the script to write that file manually because it should not auto-run in a jail.
So far, the approach that I've been taking is build golden images a la carte. So the golden image is basically assembling, in this case, Linux distributions from package. And whenever you run it, then it basically says, okay, this is golden image 1, golden image 1.1, 1.2, etc. That should still work with FreeBSD then, correct?
Yes. What I do is I put the UUID in the jail dataset in that stuff I gave a talk on at EuroBSDCon last year. So there I just use the UUID as the dataset name for the jail and generate a configuration dynamically to expose that to the jail runtime configuration.
Okay, it sounds like you have a lot to think about.
Yeah, I got like 10 pages so far.
Yeah, excellent. Perfect. That's the service we provide. So I say we call it here. We'll quit while we're ahead. There's lots to discuss in the later calls this week. And I've gone down the list. Katja, if you are available, would you like the honors?
Like and subscribe.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.